The truth you'll find staring back from this world's utmost depths. What does it mean to live in truth?
Come to join our flock, Arisen.
All right, Tristan is joining us today to discuss about Dragon's Dogma. Let's start off with the basics. What is Dragon's Dogma?
So Dragon's Dogma is an open world action title. It's a brand new IP from Capcom. Kind of the gist of the story is the dragon sort of awakens every 100 years or so. He comes and attacks your peaceful fishing village, and instead of running and fleeing like everyone else does, you take up arms against the dragon, and because of that, he takes interest in you and chooses you for what's called an Arisen. He basically takes your heart, you come back to life, and you're an Arisen, and you have sort of different abilities, and you're changed, and as you find out over the course of the story, there's a connection between the Arisen and the dragon, and you kind of have to figure out what that is and ultimately defeat the dragon.
Now, so we went hands-on there just before the interview, and action RPG, open world, but action it's like a proper full-on combat game, really. It's sort of a step away from the RPG style which we expect. This feels more like a proper action adventure. Can you sort of discuss the certain combat system of it?
Yeah, so for the combat, the director of this game actually directed Devil May Cry 4 and Devil May Cry 3, so we definitely felt like there's a place for an open world action title that kind of really focuses on the action and really delivers. And I think kind of that lineage of Devil May Cry really shows through in the game itself. The combat it's more visceral. You really get in there and get dirty. You're grappling with giant enemies and climbing on them. You're stabbing the Cyclops in the eye. You're really getting in there, and it's definitely fun and visceral combat. It's not kind of your standard RPG fare where it's sort of more about the story.
But there's certain RPG elements, obviously, as we saw the bumper buttons allowing us to buff up our character. Can you sort of talk about the two different sides? Obviously enough, there's ability to buff up your weapons as well as doing these really, really brilliant sort of magic attacks.
Yeah, so every character kind of has a different skill set. So the one you're playing as was the Mystic Knight. Obviously he has some buff attacks in terms of enchanting his weapons and also his shield. But yeah, you do have offensive magic as well. So sort of the Earthquake spell we were looking at earlier, as well as kind of the magic missile thing. So every character has kind of their own custom skill set, and you can tailor that. So if you wanted to make your Mystic Knight a little less offensive and more focused on the buffing magic, you can do that. All the skills are fully customizable, so you kind of pick and choose which ones you want and what you feel is the best way to go for the current task you're tackling.
And you're saying there's obviously a variety of classes to choose from, which you can actually sort of interchange during the course of the game, so you're not stuck with one specific class. Are the classes your traditional knight, mage, and so on, and what else can we expect from the classes?
So we do have kind of your three basic classes with fighter, strider, and mage. Strider is basically a rogue, mage and fighter are sort of self-explanatory. But we do have prestige and then hybrid classes. So if you want to be pure, fighter throughout the game, you could advance to a warrior, get two-handed weapons. If you wanted to maybe mix it up and go a little fighter mage, you could play as the Mystic Knight, which is what we were showing. So we've got some variety there. So assassin, ranger, there's a lot of things to choose from, and you can definitely kind of tailor the game to a play style you want and tackle it the way you want to do it.
And you're not basically fighting alone. You've got comrades with you. Now, this is a really, really interesting pawn system. Can you sort of elaborate on that and discuss you're telling me about the online components that brings in?
Yeah, so for the pawn system, you basically have 3 pawn characters with you kind of at all times. So you've got your main companion pawn, and he's fully customizable just like the main character. You pick, class, the way they look, all that stuff. And then the companion pawns can be rented from other players, or also they're built into the game. And the way that basically works is players are allowed to rent out their companion pawn and allow other players to use them. And there's a lot of incentive in doing that because you get whatever experience and loot your pawn gets when he's with another player, he'll bring back to you. So he gains experience in terms of how to fight enemies or the way around certain areas, and also just the items themselves. So there's a lot of incentive for players to do that and make their pawn as not only as valuable as possible, but also as appealing as possible in terms of just how they look and sort of what their skill set is.
Because I'm imagining basically if you're sticking your comrade out, your companion out on to trade, basically, you've got to sell them really well, because obviously if you want the experience, but at the same time, why should someone pick your companion over anyone else's? And you're saying that comes into basically decking out your companion, as well as what you mentioned about the experience, about them bringing the experience back. It's almost like a menu system where it will say exactly what they've brought back from being rented out by another player, and vice versa. If a player's checking your companion out, does it sort of state what enemies they're good at fighting against?
Exactly, yeah. There's sort of a full search system. So, for instance, you were fighting the Cyclops. If you were having a hard time with that, you may seek out a pawn who has sort of a higher rating with that particular boss, or maybe has really good healing magic because that was an issue you were having. So you can choose from a variety of factors, and that's a big part of the game is finding the ideal party composition for what you're doing and ensuring that you're ready to take on the various challenges in the game.
As you said, open world, we've seen bandits, we've seen lizardmen. What's the sort of range of characters you'll come up against, and are they all just in to kill you as soon as they see you?
I mean, the game definitely presents a bit of a challenge, but yes, we've got bandits, lizardmen, chimeras, harpies, ogres, goblins. I mean, a lot of your kind of standard fantasy fare, and then also there's a few sort of unique ones which we will be showing a little bit later in the campaign. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a wide variety of creatures, and we've got a lot to show off.
And can you give us a sort of ballpark figure for the release date?
Right now we're targeting May 22nd in the US, May 25th. It'll be out on Xbox 360 and PS3, May 25th in Europe. And then we'll be bundling the RE6 demo as well, so players will have access to that when they pick up a copy of Dragon's Dogma.
And is there anything else maybe we haven't covered in the interview we've perhaps missed that you audience should know about?
I think you've been very thorough, actually, so I think we've covered it. But definitely stay tuned. Check out dragonsdogma.com or facebook.com/dragonsdogma. We'll have a lot of information released there, and that's kind of where we're hosting a lot of our new content. So definitely check it out.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Summon your courage and reclaim your destiny. Only then will the eternal cycle be broken.